Perth Wildcats are going to maintain their dominance over the Adelaide 36ers. They have won 7 straight games against Adelaide and their last 4 here as well. And in the final analysis, they do it by 7 points.
There's no need to panic if the Adelaide 36ers, you can easily see that they've got the makings for a genuine shot. It's a deep run in the postseason.
I just go to show the parity that we've got here, and so many teams in the hunt.
Parity in the NBL, perhaps. Welcome into the ESPN Aussie Hoops Hour podcast. That was Perth and Adelaide, one of the marquee games of the last round of basketball. We're going to break that down. We've got Davo Hickey and the Illawarra Hawks potentially starting to turn things around now. I'm in a hotel room, and you might be wondering why. I'm in Arizona. I've just spent the last day or so with Sandy Brondello, so we'll hear from the Opals head coach and new head coach of Toronto. And then we're going to talk a little bit of Dyson Daniels, but most importantly, the man next to me, Olgun Uluc. Looks like he's made it to the Sydney studio. Olgun, how are you today? Another week, a travel day for you.
I mean, this is no longer a travel day. I'm now in Sydney. I got to the Wollongong. I got to Wollongong for the Illawarra Melbourne game. That was a cool one. I got to Sydney for the Kings Breakers game. That was not a great game. But now I'm in the Sydney studio. I bought some nice bagels for our producer. Producer feels like I'm underselling him for Loz out here. So I'm settling in out here. Tell me, how is Sandy? I watched her full press conference this morning just to get brushed up on the new gig. But Toronto Tempo, that's a cool gig, huh?
She's the best, and we spent a lot of time with her. And I don't want to tease too far ahead to the future, but I just chatted to her for around 2 hours, everything about Sandy and who she is and her personality and why she's been so great. So I can't wait for everyone to see that. Still a while away. The smart people, the important people have got to figure out how to put my mumbling questions and words together, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Now, I have been traveling. I was in LA previously. I was at another NBA game. So the one thing I am not fully up to speed with is the NBL that we've just seen. And I don't like to admit that. I've got some catching up to do on some flights in the next couple of days, and I'm looking forward to that. But one of the games that I am desperate to go back and have a look at was this Perth Wildcats Adelaide 36ers. The first time Bryce Cotton plays Perth. Yes, it was in Adelaide. It wasn't in front of the Red Army, although I did see that it looked like some key contingent from Perth made it inside the building. But the Wildcats get the dub. Olgs, what are the takeaways? Because it does feel like the cogs just starting to turn a little bit for John Riley's squad.
Yeah, we knew that the Wildcats, the top-end talent was too good for them not to be able to string some wins together. So they're going to do that. They have JLA and Dylan Windler's back and Christian Doolittle. Now that they're slowly figuring out sort of who they are, where the rotations are, generally sort of locked in that starting point guard spot. David Duke Jr. comes in and he provides a pop on the offensive end. There's athleticism and the ability to guard on the other end of the floor. So they're figuring some stuff out. This Adelaide game was interesting. It was super high scoring. Both teams sort of scored at will. The rate of scoring for both teams was pretty immense. But then it was the fourth quarter for the Wildcats. They really locked down. The 36ers are in this interesting patch where they have the best player in the league in Bryce Cotton, and they know how to make him score, but they don't really have much else. And I don't know if that's down to the talent, like a lot of people are talking about. It feels like it's down to just figuring out ways to get everyone else involved, because I feel like the talent is there. So they're slowly figuring stuff out, the 36ers on the offensive end, that they've got to mend some things on that end. But the Wildcats, this was a big win for them, a big road win. I think the sort of decision makers of the Wildcats should be reticent to treat this like this was their Game 7 championship series win. I feel like they have to sort of dial it back and take this day by day, because this league can get too reactive. And it felt like they treated this game with the utmost importance when it was just a pretty good regular season win. So again, good signs for the Perth Wildcats. I don't think by any means that they've announced themselves as the front runners or a super championship contender, but they are making progress, and I guess that's all you can ask for right now.
Yeah, can I just say, I saw some stuff floating around social, and it's interesting that you point to the fact that maybe the Wildcats shouldn't be throwing a parade about this. The one comment I would make about the Adelaide 36ers, so they lose to the Sydney Kings pretty badly, and that was kind of a game where the Kings walked into that building and said, okay, this means something to us because of Kendrick Davis. This game clearly meant something to the Perth Wildcats, and maybe it meant more to the front office than it did to anyone on the floor. I'm not 100% sure. But I absolutely would not be treating this like something that, hey, this proves we were in the right. We were in the right moving on from Bryce Cotton. It's not even anything close to that. You still lost the best player in the NBL. They will play each other further along in the season. So I'm with you. I think there's interesting elements to this. I think that Bryce wasn't close to as efficient as he's been in the past going off the box score for me. But I do think that both of these teams, and the point you make about Adelaide, this team has spoken about it. There are games where Bryce is just going to carry you to a win. They're trying to figure out what happens if he's not at his best and how to get everyone else involved. So Adelaide still feel like a big, a puzzle that they're trying to put together. But what about the roster? Have you heard anything about this team? Are they bringing anyone into this Adelaide 36ers roster?
Feels like they are. The latest that I heard over the last few days was that, probably close to the FIBA break, which is coming up in about a week and a half, that they'll probably be bringing someone in. They are looking at the import market. From what I'm told, they will have an import sooner than later. And
what type of player? Don't worry about that. Who are we talking? Any names or what kind of position?
I don't have names. The feel is that it'll be sort of like a wing type player. There's some depth in the front court. You've got sort of those three bigs between Isaac Humphries, Nick Rakocevic, and Zylan Cheatham, and then the back court. They're still figuring out the best rotations with Bryce Cotton, DJ Vasiljevic, Flynn Cameron, Isaac White. There's some defensive deficiencies with some of those guys, so you've got to work around those. And so it feels like someone who's going to slot right in the middle, who can maybe help both sides. Maybe it feels like a three who can maybe slide up to the four. The sort of the name I got told, and this obviously isn't the player, but the play style, sort of like a Wes Iwundu type, someone who can come in, can make shots, can guard multiple positions, just be a really useful player out there. That's what it feels like they're getting. And from what I'm hearing right now, feels like that guy's going to be coming in sooner than later.
That's good stuff. I'm glad that I asked you that. I agree. I don't technically, or I'm not on board with people that say that this Adelaide team doesn't have enough offensive firepower. I think that the worst thing the 36ers can do right now is bring in another guy who's going to want the ball in his hands and he's going to want a certain quantity of shots, because I just think it's enough. We've seen, it's funny you mentioned Wes Iwundu, but this Phoenix team that, yes, again, it looked like maybe they were shorthanded offensively against Melbourne United, but defensively they've got an identity, and that's going to help you win a bunch of these games. So that's the type of guy I would be looking for, someone that can defend and just fit in the pieces. There's been so much talk about Zylan Cheatham and how he's been willing to sacrifice his numbers a little bit. That has helped Adelaide, and I think that's the type of player they would be looking at. Go ahead.
Let me say two things on that. One is you look at the recent throwdown real quickly. Hunter Maldonado played 7 minutes in that game. He left with, I think, concussion symptoms. So. Yeah. There's a lot of people who are very reactive and say, oh, that game is the example that the Phoenix need to go and get another creator, another guard. They have a guy there who's been pretty reliable. He was just out for this game. So I'm not going to be super reactive to that game like a lot of people might. And by the same token, I look at the 36ers, and if let's say you bring in a ball dominant creator type, that guy's going to come in, and if they play the same style of basketball, then that guy is almost going to become redundant. They play this style of basketball that's very Bryce heavy. I think the next step for the 36ers isn't necessarily bringing in a high usage guy. I think it's about tweaking the offense, having actions for different guys. Why don't we see more actions for shooters, whether it's Vasiljevic or Flynn Cameron or Isaac White? Why isn't there more stuff for Isaac Humphries down low, and then maybe some splits actions, things like that? It feels like they need different actions to get other guys involved, because it's very Bryce heavy. And I feel like a really good way to maximize Bryce and continue to maximize him is to get other guys involved and to bend the defense in other ways. So again, there's definitely a piece that they can add that will make them a better team. But I think just becoming more cohesive and getting others involved, because the talent is there. They're so talented. If you can get that talent involved, then I think everyone can improve because of it.
Yeah, I think that there's a little bit of a it's a blessing and curse situation we've seen at Sydney Kings in the fourth quarter with Kendrick Davis. And I don't blame Kendrick Davis for this, but I do think that when the guys are so talented offensively and they can get a bucket and they've proven that they can carry a team, part of you does sit back a little bit. And it's like, well, he can figure it out. So I think that's what the 36ers are going through. We had a big discussion on the Illawarra Hawks last week, and just the key pieces, the significant guys that aren't there from the title last year. And we did say the one guy coming back into it is Davo Hickey. You talk about a guy where the confidence has just absolutely skyrocketed over the last 12 months. And we had a chance to speak to him a little bit going back a week and a half ago, just before he returned to this team. And he spoke about that. He's like, look, this hasn't been a quick ascension for me. This has been something that's been building over a long time. I've learned how I can fit in. I learned how to harness my skills and also have the confidence at the level. We've seen a guy that's come in and again, I'm not sold on the depth of this team, but they need star power and they need guys that can fill up the box score. And it would be hard for Davo Hickey to be any more impressive than he's been coming back from this eye injury. The goggles, man. He loves the goggles.
I mean, coming off a triple-double against the Cairns Taipans, yes, we can say it was against the Taipans. Sort of everyone can play well against them. Bryce Cotton had 50 against them.
Double
But
vision and a triple-double, Hogs. Davo
well
Hickey.
done. Good on you. Congratulations. But I'll say this: the game prior to that against Melbourne United, that was a really big win, and he was really important in that game.
Yeah.
The Illawarra Hawks went from one functional point guard in Tyler Harvey to three in Tyler Harvey, Davo Hickey, and QJ Peterson. So that in itself is obviously going to lift your floor. On top of that, you have JaVale McGee getting back into shape. He came to the NBL straight from Puerto Rico, had pneumonia, so he had to get in shape. And it seems like he's getting there. And then it's just developing the chemistry too. It's really interesting. The start of the season, the Illawarra Hawks were the fastest team in the league. It's really odd that they've added Davo Hickey, someone who we think is going to excel in the half court and in transition, and he does. But they're a team that's been playing a lot in the half court. They're one of the slower paced teams in the league since Hickey's been back in the lineup. And I feel like it's just the nature of point guards coming in and sort of settling things. So Davo Hickey is doing his job. He's getting on the rim. He's hitting shots, which is interesting. The chemistry with JaVale McGee looks really cool. And then QJ Peterson comes in, and we've seen everything from him. We've seen some creation from him and JaVale McGee linking up. We've seen the shot making from him. He has like this Chris Golding type of like back-breaking three-pointer where it feels like the other team's going on a bit of a run. The momentum is about to shift, and then whack, QJ Peterson hits a three. So these pieces are slowly coming up. I agree with you. I don't think this is some amazing, rounded product that's going to go win a championship. But they're a team that they've won 2 games. The next 3 games are really tough. There are some road games. There's a game against Sydney, Melbourne, and Adelaide, I believe, in their next 3. If they could win all 3 of those, then I'm treating this team like a real one. But this will be a big test for them. Honestly, if they can go 2-1 over their next 3, then I consider them a real playoff contender. To get to championship contender, I really need to see more from them. I got to see how teams continue to exploit JaVale McGee on the other end. I don't think Melbourne United did that at all. I'm curious to see if the Sydney Kings do it this weekend. But the Hawks, I gave them some grief last week because I just don't like the makeup of their roster. I still don't love it, but they are figuring some stuff out, so credit to them.
Well, you either need... Last year, they had the perfect mix. They had star power, but they also had depth. If you're not going to have 3 or 4 guys that can be all NBL caliber, then you need a deep rotation that can play a variety of different ways. Again, last year they had both of that. The start of this year, they had neither. But now, when you have McGee, now you've got Davo Hickey, then Tyler Harvey, who we haven't really mentioned in this conversation. Now, life gets easier for him. So I know you mentioned JaVale McGee and perhaps the over-reliance they've had to have on him in the past, but I just think that the reason for that is because they had no one else. Now they actually do have a team that can play in the half-court offense, and he is the biggest mismatch problem in the entire league. In with the mix of size, still extreme athleticism, so he can play fast and play slow. But what you want to do is look after his health right throughout the season. But they have got themselves back to a point now with all these guys that they can beat any team. So I'm not saying title defense is back on, but what I am saying is that there is definitely a spot in this play-in mix that is wide open for grabs. So if there was ever a season where you're going to start looking absolutely awful and then can work your way into the season, I think the Hawkies are going to start to feel pretty good about themselves that they can get back in this play-in mix. And from there, who knows?
If you asked me 2 weeks ago, would the Illawarra Hawks defend their title, I would have said no. You asked me today, I'm not going to say yes, but I'm not going to say no. Right now, they just need to sort of tread water until Jonah Bolden comes back and he has to get back into shape, and then Sam Froling ultimately joins the fray, and they can throw really interesting lineups at you. They're very big. It's going to be tough to guard. They're going to be really funky to guard. So if they can tread water until they get all their pieces back, then they can make some noise toward the back end of the season. But the key is treading water. And right now they're on a little hot stretch. Let's see if they can keep it up. 3 tough games coming up.
All right, I like it. That's going to do it for NBL here, and nothing but net, Aussie Hoops. Make sure you watch that. Stacks of NBL. Ryan Brockhoff is a man he's been in the lab. He's been looking through the video footage, and he thinks he's got some hot takes that he's going to bring to the table Thursday night. Watch it on ESPN. Rewatch it on Disney+. So nothing but net, Aussie Hoops. Make sure you chuck that out. There were some whispers of a big man from Illawarra being on the show, and Ben, our producer, if he's listening to this, he might be very angry that I brought that up because I don't think it's confirmed. But either way, we'll see whether that happens in a couple of days when we get into studio. But I mentioned I'm in Arizona right now. We've been speaking with Sandy Brondello. I did sit down with her after the lengthy chat to just discuss Toronto Tempo and what this new opportunity looks like for her. But first, this is Sandy at the intro press conference in Toronto.
To build a team from the ground up, that really excited me. As Monica said, I've won 2 championships. I've been to the playoffs every single year, so there's no pressure coming into this new season. But that really excites me, the challenge that we have ahead of us, and to do it in another country really excites me. I mean, the team is the Toronto Tempo, but I know it's going to be a Canadian team. And obviously I am from Australia, so we're both from the Commonwealth. And Australians and Canadians, what I do know, they have so much passion for sport, and I know that they're going to really support us.
Joined by Sandy Brondello, the head coach of the Toronto Tempo. That's going to take a little while to get used to. How does it feel for you?
Feels great. It was to be announced last week, and the reception that I got and the excitement around the whole city of this new team. It was incredible.
What was the process like? You were a coach in demand, Sandy. How did you work your way through the decision you were going to make and then ultimately the startup franchise?
Yeah, no, it was an interesting process for me. And, I was just lucky, I suppose, a few teams had some openings there and, spoke to some different ones. But ultimately, chose the Tempo and, I was excited about doing something from the scratch and building a culture and a legacy in a new city and a new country. And but most of all, it's like just getting to work with really good people. And the general manager is a former player, so that resonated with me. So excited about what we can build.
We've seen expansion recently in the WNBA. So what does it actually look like? Have you got your head around expansion, drafting, and players you might be able to bring in, and free agency and everything going on?
Well, with the CBA, there's a lot of what ifs at the moment. Nothing can be really done. And even what the process will look like until the CBA is done, and hopefully that's sooner than later. But we can still strategize about, we know we can take one player from these expansion from the other teams. But Portland, we're also competing against Portland Fire, so we'll be very intentional about what that looks like, and it's fun. But then with the CBA, 85% of the players are free agents, so hopefully we can sell them on a summer in Toronto. And, the exciting things we want to build for this team and make it a world-class franchise.
It's easy for me to say, but I would sit back and say, why the heck would you want to be a head coach when you win a title and then a year later you move on? It seems like you were ready for a move, but it was a quick turnaround from the celebrations in New York to now. Why did you think it was time to move on and a new challenge?
Yeah, look, obviously, I mean, in the end, it was a leadership decision, and that's okay. That's the business that we're in. It's high stakes, and they want to win, and I wanted to win. We had a really disruptive year in New York with injuries, but in the end, I felt like you kind of know when it's time, and I think I'm old enough, wise enough to know it's time. I probably need a different challenge, and with different people. So I'm excited about this new challenge. Yes, people say, why would you choose an expansion? But I'm like, well, why not? I've won 2 championships. I'd love to win another one, and that's important. But it was just something that really, I thought it would be the best thing for me at this stage of my career.
I feel like you put a bit of pressure on yourself. You're in that press conference and the room is absolutely packed, and you did mention that you've made the postseason every year as a head coach. Do you regret perhaps mentioning that so early to this packed room of media?
No, you got to dare to dream, and you got to put expectations out there, and that's our goal. Obviously, I mean, hopefully in a few years we can win a championship, but I also know how hard that is, and the expansion and the free agency, we have to hit a home run there, and I'm confident that we can, but you never know. But still, in the end, you just got to put the players in the best position that they can have success. And I don't mind. I'm used to it. I've had pressure my whole life. So this is just another step in obviously my career, and I'm excited for the challenge.
What is the sales pitch? Because it seems like your relationship with this new ownership group, it seems like you're really excited to work with these people. So when you talk about success and the journey you're going to be on to get there, what do they sell to you? What do they see for first year for a new team and first in Canada?
Well, obviously they told me how much they wanted me, and I think that helps. And what's a partnership look like? I think the connections yeah, I need to be in an environment, because what we do is really hard. So you need to be in an environment where there is that collaboration and there's support in all departments. That really what resonated with me. But the owner, he's great. I mean, he's obviously he's been in pro sports for a while, so I think he'd be a great resource to lean into. But he just, I think Larry's just a great person. Teresa Resch, the president, and was with the Raptors for many years. But Monica Wright, the former player. I just felt like there's that strong connection, and so that's what I went with.
How do you say Toronto, Sandy?
Toronto. There's no T. I've been told that, so I feel bad that Toronto. There you go, Toronto tempo.
The whole country has already forgiven you. Last one. What is left for you? I look at your resume and everything you've done as a coach, and it still looks like you're seeking the new challenge or the next challenge, or you still feel like there's plenty left in the tank. What is it for you?
Yeah, I just love what I do. There's so much more. It's like, can I win another championship in a whole different country? That's a challenge. That's a great challenge. Can the Opals win a gold medal at Olympic Games? We haven't done that. So that's a challenge, but that's a challenge that excites me. And, things have to all become aligned here, but that's what keeps me going. But in the end, it's the people and the opportunity that I have to coach the best players in the world and continue to get better as a coach.
Sandy, you're an absolute star. You mentioned Olympics just quickly. I can't wait for 2028 in LA, and I can't wait to see you in Brisbane in 2032.
Yeah, right. I told you that, Kane. I'm not going to Brisbane. That was too much pressure. The World Cup in Sydney, it's the most pressure I've ever felt. And for 2 weeks, I wasn't going to ever do it again, but here I am, still going. But I love it. I love it. The players, and hopefully we can make everybody proud.
I don't believe you. I think I will see you in Brisbane 2032, and I can't wait for that. But hey, thanks for letting me in your beautiful home. The pool's behind us. I don't know if we can have a swim, but we appreciate the time.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, so there's Sandy, and as I said in that chat, I'm not buying the fact that she won't be at another home Olympics in 2032. So we're excited for the Opals this year. It's a World Cup year, Olgs, and Sandy, just a cool person all around. Always nice to chat with her.
Was a 2-hour chat with her, was that all on camera? I don't know if I've ever done a chat that long on camera with a subject. What was that like? I haven't spent a lot of time with Sandy Brondello. What was she like over that period of time?
Yeah, we're really lucky. We had the ESPN features crew roll in. They had cameras everywhere. Sandy, beautiful house, as you can probably imagine. And they had a nice setup, and we just kicked back on the couch. And we were just chatting for 2 hours. And I've spoken to Sandy. I think I first met her nearly a decade ago now, and we've been through a lot of national team competitions, and we've had her on our shows a billion times on Zoom calls and short form interviews. But one thing that I think we realized is that we don't know a lot about the person Sandy and why she is the way that she is, and where she came from in a farm in Mackay in Queensland to then coaching the Liberty to a championship. So she's a really interesting person. And when you get to know her a little bit more, and she talks about her compassion for people and empathy for people, and she's an emotional person as well, and it comes out in a love for the game. So as you can imagine, there was so much that we covered in 2 hours. I can't wait to see, what the final product looks like. But she's just a really interesting and cool person. It was a fun thing to do. As you said, you don't get a chance to do that too often.
I'll tell you this. I've been to Mackay twice. You get off the airplane. There's no bridge. So you get off the airplane and there's like a boardwalk almost to the airport, and you see famous people from Mackay. So I want to say Kathy Freeman's on it. I could be wrong. I know Todd Blanchfield is on it. I want to say Clint Steindl too. And then you see Sandy Brondello sort of on the wall. These people are plastered there. So they are very proud of their exports, Mackay. So again, I've seen that, and it is cool. Someone from a small, I call it a town in Queensland, 2-time WNBA champion, doing such amazing things over there. It's very cool to see. I don't think we make enough of our awesome, sporting exports out here, especially the ones that are thriving the WNBA.
Yeah, that was ultimately why we wanted to do it. Essentially, between playing and coaching, 4 decades of contributions to basketball in Australia, 4 Olympic Games as a player, already 2 as a coach, 2 WNBA titles, and now this new venture in Toronto. So Sandy's awesome, and a really interesting person. But speaking of expats from small towns, Olgs, what about Bendigo? What about the hero of Bendigo, Dyson Daniels, and what he's been able to do? So we've discussed the NBA a lot over the last few weeks. I did float the idea on Nothing But Net last week that maybe there might be some people in that Atlanta organization that aren't too upset. Nobody wants injuries, but aren't too upset that Trae Young out of this lineup. It gives this Atlanta Hawks team a real opportunity to work through Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnson, Zachary Reese-Shea, these young players, and get them more touches and say, okay, what have we got? Because ultimately, we're in the middle right now. We're looking to move up. We've got some decisions financially to make moving forward. And Dyson's grabbed it, man. Look, cold start shooting the ball, but over these last 5 games, over 50% from the floor, 40% from 3, and 7 assists, Olgs. This guy is wheeling and dealing in the half-court offense.
Yeah, like you said, it sucks, but the injury came at a really good time for Dyson Daniels in that it looked like he was struggling to find his feet, his role, just where he fit in the Atlanta Hawks offense. Obviously, there are new pieces on that team, so I feel like he was trying to figure out where he was, but it wasn't really fixed. Now Trae Young's out. Dyson's been, the de facto starting point guard. He's been the primary ball carrier, the primary creator, and he's a really good playmaker. People forget it, but he was that all through his junior career as well. We saw glimpses of it last season as well when Trae Young was out, that Dyson Daniels can step in and be like a what Giddey is in Chicago, a triple-double threat every night. And he almost had a triple-double the other night against the Lakers, a huge 20-point win. But again, the injury to Trae Young, it's super interesting because you see what Dyson Daniels looks like. You see how good the team is on both ends. Obviously, defensively, it lifts them a significant amount when it's Dyson in that spot instead of Trae Young. But Trae Young has a player option on his deal next season. It's obviously off the contract the following season. Does it force the Atlanta Hawks, not necessarily to make the decision? I don't know if we're not in a position to talk about that, but does it make them think about it? Like, what does this team look like with Dyson Daniels running the show? And what is Dyson Daniels? Is he in the spectrum of Jalen Suggs to Lou Dortz? Which side is he on? It's a really interesting conversation that we're having because of the opportunities Dyson's getting.
So he's 22, and this is what always gets me, Olgs. I know he had a cold start, efficiency-wise on the offensive end, but he's 22 years old, and based on what we saw last year, because everyone focused on the defense, he was still most improved player. The reason why he was most improved player is because his scoring took a massive leap as well, double-digit scoring for the first time in his career, but his assists per game went from 2.7 to over 4.2, I think it was, on the season. So he took a big jump there, exactly what you're talking about. And even a couple of weeks ago when we were at Atlanta, one of the points that Quinn was making, he's like, firstly, I don't care, Quinn Snyder, the head coach, I don't care that he's not making layups right now. I don't want him thinking about that. But the other thing that I know that he's going to figure out is how to get downhill and find his teammates and get them involved. So I'm not saying that he's going to be a Josh Giddey style, like completely running offense night in, night out. But he's 22. Last year, he took a step offensively. Now with Trae Young out of the lineup, it looks like he's taking another step. Now, they haven't beaten any world beaters yet without Trae in the lineup, but they've won games. They had a nice win against Orlando where the young guys were all involved and he had some big numbers there. And overall, the confidence looks great. And it's just the one thing that I think no one should forget. He's not a finished product. He's going to continue to get better. And we've seen some nice touch. He's like changing hands in midair. He's getting to the spin move. He's using his physicality. This guy is going to get better. And I don't think there's any doubt the Hawks, would probably not mind moving on. They did not come to a contract extension with Trae. So, look, I think the Hawks are an interesting team to watch. I love their young core. And more importantly, I love that Dyson continues to get better. You've seen him in Melbourne working out as hard as he does. So, Giddey went on the trajectory, getting better. Dyson's doing the same thing.
Yeah, and it's like another reminder, and everyone has to yell it from the rooftops, but development isn't linear. Everyone's going to go through ebbs and flows. This team added a bunch of wings between Luke Kennard and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. You have to sort of refine your footing in a team like this. But I'm just curious sort of which direction Dyson goes down from like a player profile standpoint. There is the sort of defensive point guard sort of guy, the Drew Holiday type, the Jalen Suggs type. Is it that sort of route, or is it the elite 3-and-D type of player? Basically he's sort of stepping into whatever his team needs right now. But I'm curious which one he goes down. He's already got that contract extension, which is great. He doesn't really have to focus on that anymore. He can just focus on getting better and keep finding his feet. But I'm just curious which sort of player profile he steps into over the next sort of year or two.
All right. Positive signs for Dyson early in the season. Before we wrap this up, Olgs, what do you got cooking? Anything we need to look forward to on espn.com.au?
Oh, nothing imminent. I feel
Just
bad.
having
I
a week
wrote
off. That's all right,
story.
mate. Hey, take a week off. We all need rest.
all right, man, you're the one in a hotel room. You had a 2-hour lunch with Sandy Brondello. One of us is slacking, and it's not me. Look, I wrote a big story on Melbourne United last week, and then they decided to go to lose 2 games in a row, break their 9-game winning streak. So I felt bad about that. So I felt I'd give it a miss on this week, writing a feature on a team. No, I'm just keeping up to date with what's going on. The New Zealand All Blacks just announced the team that they're sending to Tasmania, then back to Wellington for the FIBA World Cup qualifying games, and it looks like a hell of a team. That front court, Tyrell Harrison, Finn Delaney, Sam Menenga, Yanni Wetzel. Australia's got their work cut out for them. So we've got those games on ESPN. I'm really curious how those games are going to turn out because Australia still has to qualify for the World Cup, and the first window is going to be really, really tough.
I like it. Nice work by you. And yes, you did jinx United last week, so have a week off between annoying NBL teams. All right, that's going to do it. The ESPN Aussie Hoops Hour podcast. I have got a flight to catch, as I said, and if anyone's tracking what it looks like in the US TSA, say a prayer for me that I can make it back to studio for NBA pregame tomorrow. For Olgun, Uluc, for myself, Kane, Pitman, that was the ESPN Aussie Hoops Hour podcast. We will be back next Tuesday.